Welcome again to the Mss Francois Show, where you have candid conversation, some entertainment, and we use humor to help you deal with your dysfunctional relationships. Today, my guest is about to help you because you're frustrated, you're angry, you can't find your man, you're sleeping with your best friend, your cousin, you're burned out, you're just stressed about everything. You're stressed about life because your parents told you so about him and you didn't listen. So joining me today is Dr. Kimberly Wilson. She also known as Dr. Burnout. But let me tell you, normally I memorize people, their credentials, but this one have some long set of lists. So listen to some of this, okay? She's an organizational consultant, trainer, author, international psychologist, licensed marriage and family therapist, and an executive coach. And she's also retired from the Marine Corps. Now, I don't know if she has she own school or something, because you have to have your own school because she have letters in front of her name and letters after her name. So all that is to say is she knows what she is talking about. And if she doesn't, I'll make sure and find out today for you guys. So welcome, Dr. Kimberly Wilson.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Francois. I am honored to be here and excited to talk to your guests, ready to have a good time.
Yeah, you should be, because it's my show. So with that said, I always like to just get straight into it. All that little talking, I ain't got time for that. You mentioned that your mission is to cure 5,500 women of burnout and transform 100 organization. Now, you ain't say 1,000, you ain't say 100,000, you ain't say 50. You came up with 5,500. How did you come up with that number?
Yes, well, that number has a lot of significance for me, mainly because my grandmother died at that age. And so I added 2 zeros to that. Her life was cut short. I lost her when I was in high school, and she lived a life of burnout. She was always doing for other people. She was always tired. I can remember the phrase in her voice when she was talking to my grandfather, "Man, leave me alone, I'm tired." You know, and that was true. I watched her work herself to the bone.
Mm,
And
wow.
so I don't want to see other women and other grandchildren lose their grandmothers because of that. So I want to help them overcome burnout.
That's amazing. So this whole thing basically partly comes because of your grandmother.
Yes,
That is
absolutely.
amazing. Your basic whole thing is to prevent burnout, right? So my
Right.
thing about that is how do women even identify if they are burned out? Because some people might be going through life and that's what it is and it's normal.
It, I'm glad you said that because it is so normalized in this culture, especially and particularly for women of color and Black women. That's the trope, right? Strong Black women. We can do it all. We can conquer it all. And we
You
are
don't need no
killing
man.
ourselves. Yeah,
I
you
mean,
don't need no man and you're killing
but I
yourself.
want one.
So one of the ways that I have them do that is the first thing on my website is a burnout test. So you can take that, there's no charge, and it gives you a gauge of how much you're running your body down. It has very few questions, I think about 10 to 12 questions, and it computes your score for you and lets you know what areas you need to improve and look at. Um, so yeah, and the other way that it comes out is not only this thing that we're given from society, but we have a tendency to enable others and we want to be needed. So we tend to do more for them, even in working environments. And it's so hard for people to let go. It also, you'll see it in people who like a sense of control. And I know I struggle with this because I've had to burn out and get into recovery 3 or more times, I think in just about every decade.
Wow. Because like, okay, first of all, you heard what she said, free. All I heard was free. So check out her website. Anything with free, we need to go check that out, okay? So that could actually help you to figure out if you're burnt out or not. If not, good for you. If you are burned out, you're listening to the right person. Dr. Burnout, Kimberly Wilson. So I read somewhere that you said basically how some of these things even come about beside having to do with your grandma is that you were in your car crying one day and it led you to even starting some of these strategies or different things that you use to prevent burnout. So why the hell were you crying? What he did? And what's his name?
His name was work, and it was multiple. It was multiple days. So the time that's most poignant for me is, so my children are 16 months apart, right? So 2 sets of diapers, right? At the time, my husband was working. He was a field engineer, so he was never at home, nowhere near my family. I'm in the South, they're in Michigan. So I'm doing all this by myself and running, and I'm in charge of this large organization, a bunch of therapists, people who don't want to listen, and having
Because they
all
know they're therapists.
yeah, that everybody knows everything, and I had to liaise with the state, and there was inspections, and it would just all be too much because I was working all day there, then taking work home, and it had gotten to the point, I think one day it was so bad that I just said, hey, mommy's just going to sit on the couch, and if you guys want some stuff that's in the refrigerator. I was burnt out. I had nothing left, and I said, I can't keep doing this.
So okay, here you are in your last leg, and you're like, epiphany. I want to help other people. That's why that's always, like I say with my show, I take my pain and made it my purpose, having to do with relationship. So you took your pain from your burnout and made it somewhat of a career. But
Yes.
so you were at that point where you're like, what was the first thing you do to even get on this path? Because I'm thinking if you're burned out, you don't even know what you're doing next.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I had to do, so I have a 5C system, and the first thing I did was consider, so which is essentially an assessment, looking at my life, what is not working, what is not going well, where is the dysfunction? Because you can't even begin to heal yourself. When you go to the doctor, you need to figure out what's wrong. And
Right.
then they can give you a treatment plan. So that's what you do. You consider what is dysfunctional within your life. And then you begin to decide, is the dysfunction internal or is it external? If it's internal, that's something that I need to fix. Another way that I need to communicate, another way I need to think about things, another way I need to behave. If it's external, that's when you're making decisions. Do I need to have these people in my life? Do I need to have this type of role? And do I need to be in this environment? Because if it's external, it's not attached to you, and you can get away from it, except if it's like kids and family. Sometimes you can't get away when you're stuck with people. I'm not going to mention those of mine, but sometimes you're just stuck with people.
Okay, just so you all know, family members, immediate family, she's talking about you, okay? She don't eat nothing from Miss Kimberly anytime soon, all right? I'm just saying. But
Oh,
that's but that's it. Like you said, people could take the free evaluation about being burned out. List some things. So what else for women especially? What are some of the main things that causes their burnout?
okay. So a lot of it stems from this sense of imposter syndrome. I have seen some powerful, dynamic women that are killing the game in so many areas of life, but yet on the inside, they feel worthless. It's not enough. So they're walking around with this sense of doubt and this sense of shame. And it's usually not just an inner critic, but it's that voice that they heard early on, whether it was somebody who was abusive or somebody who didn't believe them. And they just kind of carry it along as they go and continue to accomplish things. I know a lot of people say try to make your haters your celebrators, you let them motivate you, but it's really hard to silence that voice. So a lot of that imposter syndrome leads you to want to drive more, to do more, because it's never enough, right? There's never a line, if that's
Now you
making
have
sense.
how you have me evaluating myself. I'm like, am I burned out? Because like how in the beginning we even talked about something we don't even necessarily know, and you thinking you're fine, you know? So
Hmm.
that's thank you. Now I'm depressed. No, I definitely need a therapist, Miss Kimberly. Thanks a lot. Last time you were on my show.
Well, see, and you know what? You bring up a good point, because there's a
Mm.
difference between short-term stress or eustress. Because, say, for example, like you did the TED Talk, or you're about to do a TED Talk.
Oh, I did it. It just has to
Okay,
be
so
released.
so that was probably a little stressful working up to it. You were probably writing
Little.
and rewriting and practicing. You were doing all these things, but that was very short term. it didn't go on forever. So that's eustress. That's positive. That's event based. It ends.
Mm.
Burnout is when it's persistent and it just never ends. So, you could have that TED talk and then you could have something else and you just never give yourself any downtime. It's like getting in a car and just pressing on the gas and the brakes at the same time.
Oh, interesting. That's a good analogy. So now I see clearly, because some people might be like, oh, I'm stressed right now because I have to figure out what I have for dinner, but you're not necessarily burned out. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I'm not burned out. Thank God. I did take that test, by the way. And I was like, oh, thank God I am burnt out. So
Oh,
I'm
good,
still in
good,
the game.
good.
So, like one of the things you had mentioned before is something the people in are externally that's causing you stress, right? But when you
Right.
make changes in your life when it comes to people around you, as in boundaries, how do you deal with people saying stuff like, oh, you think you're better than me, or we used to do this, or you have changed when you're trying to protect, I guess, your sanity and your peace?
Well, that's an excellent question.
I
And
know
it
I said
depends.
I gave you the
That's why
question.
I
That's
asked.
why. Okay.
That's why I asked, right? And so I've heard of people doing it two ways. One is where they make an announcement. They say, hey, look, this is not working, things aren't going right. And that tends to be the more direct route. And sometimes you get that direct confrontation and you get it out of the way. And then there's maybe some chatter. And some people just choose to make the changes. And sometimes there's an impact and sometimes there isn't. So you're going to have to make the decision in yourself that discomfort is preferable than the pain that is bringing to your life. Because for some people, it's worth it. It's worth it to have that short-term disagreement than to continue to have that pattern to go on in your life.
And like you just mentioned, right? You said success is found during periods of discomfort. Explain that, because when people say, they're like, that makes sense, but sometimes people don't even understand. It just sounds like a really nice quote. So what does that mean?
Right. So when we stay in the place that we are, it feels very comfortable. We understand it, we know it. That's why people get in so many dysfunctional relationships. They keep just dating the same person over and over again because it's familiar. You are not growing and you're not doing anything different. When it's uncomfortable and you start, say, dating somebody, and I'm just going to use super wealthy because that would be highly different for me.
Because for me, it would be short. I'm like, I ain't dating nobody short.
That's a no for me too. That's a hard pass. And that's uncomfortable because so you would have to be like, oh man, I'm looking down at this guy. This is really, and so maybe if you were to engage in that, maybe you would expand and learn about different people and have a new friend that because you considered somebody different. So that discomfort, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations spawns growth. It has to, because either you're going to grow or you're going to die.
Oh,
Everything
damn.
that's alive has to grow.
It's just how you said that. Either you're going to grow or you're going to die. Choose
Yeah,
one.
yeah. It is. It's stagnation. And so I've been in this therapy game, so at least 23 years. And there's nothing that people regret more than not taking chances,
Mhm.
not growing. They regret the road that they didn't take, not the mistakes. Nobody regrets mistakes. It's
That's
a
true, really.
it's a growing lesson, right?
But you know how it have some people say, well, I'm content where I am? Because I know a few people that's content with where they are. So what's the situation with those people if they're content in the place that they are and they're not going, regardless if it's job, relationship, just life?
Okay, so in the sense where people are content that they've acquired their dream, more than likely they are working on how to maintain that. So even if you've arrived where you're at, you can't just set it and forget it. You've got to maintain that relationship. You've got to maintain that role in your work. You can't just be like, oh, okay, well, I did my 10 years. I don't have to do nothing no more. You've
You know
got to
what's
continue
funny?
to show up.
Every time I hear the word set it and forget it, it just tells everyone how old we are. I mean, not me, her. Because one of the things was you had defined burnout like a disease,
Mhm.
right? And if you don't care, if you don't find a cure for burnout, what is basically the downside? What have you seen happen to people, or what are some of the worst things that happen from people who experience burnt out?
Right. And actually the World Health Organization actually defines it as a disease. And so you can have
Really?
both. Yes, yes, it was defined as a medical diagnosis. And there are a lot of physical diseases associated with burnout, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, uh, diabetes, a lot of stress related disorders, gastrointestinal distress. And then when you talk about relationships, oftentimes those deteriorate. It leads to divorce. When you have somebody in overwork and overwhelm, everybody is a checklist. They're just doing things. So you're not really participating in life and in those relationships. They're often irritable, cranky. There's just so many things that deteriorate with that work, professional relationships, even friendship. They tend to withdraw, get depressed, possibly even suicide. So it can be quite isolating and debilitating on the emotional and physical side as well.
Wow. See, things that you don't even know or don't even understand the level to what certain things could be. Because some people may, oh, I'm just tired. I'll take some rest and I'll start again tomorrow and I'll be fine. That's crazy.
Mhm.
And so many things could be happening to your body, you know?
Right.
Oh,
And
that
we
is
haven't
interesting.
even begun to talk about the disrupted sleep patterns, because usually
Mm,
they're so stressed and depressed, then they, when it's time to rest and allow your body to rejuvenate, they're often, because they're so overwhelmed, they're strategizing on what to do for tomorrow. So when they're at work, they're thinking about home, because all the things
mm-hmm.
you can't do at home and all the
True.
doctor's appointments and what have you. And when they're at home, they're thinking about work. And then when they go to bed, they're thinking about both of them. And that really doesn't leave much room to want to be in the mood for sex and intimacy.
Oh yeah, that's not good. And this show is all about having sex. Okay, no, that's a different episode.
Yeah, not very much sex getting put out.
Oh my God. Like as you talk about it, like I'm seeing it exactly, especially when you, as like you say, a woman and their parents and they have jobs and then you still have to be a wife and then you run in maybe the PTA and you have projects to do. So how does, so since we're talking about women and we're so stressed out right about now, it sounds like we're about to die next week, the way you're talking, right? How does burnout differ from women and men? Is there a difference or there's not a difference?
Well, the difference for men, and of course we're talking stereotypically, that doesn't apply to every man, but most men don't take on a lot of the caretaking roles. So they take on more of the financial stress piece of that. But overwhelmingly, I work with women who are also caregiving for elderly parents. They are taking care of their sisters or their brothers' children who are addicted to drugs and not doing them, and financially supporting them, as well as caring for their own children and possibly even the neighbor down the street, and making sure that there's dinner on the table. So there's a lot more caregiver stress as well going on for women. And men tend to be more focused on responsibilities and breadwinning and relationships in the professional capacity.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like we women, after we take on all these things, become burnout and stressed. That's how we end up stressing the man out.
Right. And so that's one of the phrases that has, and I'm gonna use a really old phrase, chapped my hide for the longest time, is when I hear some of my clients say, well, he said he was gonna help. And let me tell you why I hate the word help. Help connotes this notion that they are lending their support to your responsibility rather than it
Mm,
being a shared responsibility. They have skin cells that shed in that home as well. It's also their children, it's also their home. So everyone should have some joint responsibilities and not, so funny story. I'm gonna try and say this as quick as I can. At
yeah,
one
that's
point
fine.
in my life, I had a job that paid me so much money. I didn't have to work the whole year, right? And I worked harder in the time that I wasn't working. So when they
Hmm.
called and said, hey, can you come back? I said, yes, 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 I can. Please let me come back to work,
Wow,
because
that's
I was
crazy.
overwhelmed.
At home.
at
So
home
like work was like less stressful. That's crazy.
because
Okay,
I had two small children, both in school, their homework, cooking, laundry, cleaning, a huge house. I give it up to homemakers, engineers. They have a
wow.
hard job.
Right. And then you still have to enter, go outside and have put on a good face for everybody, and people really don't know what you're dealing with internally. That's pretty
Right.
good. Now I'm going to be
And then
watching all
have
my friends
sex.
side eye.
And then have
Yes. Oh,
sex at night. It's not a
yeah.
release.
You see, that's why we women are so good at faking. Okay. One of the things you had listed is your strategies for top performers. What are they? These strategies for top performers. Are these performers that is able to overcome burnout? I just want to say, in what sense is it that they overcome burnout and what they do?
Right. Well, accomplishing what they set out to accomplish, as well as uh, taking care of their physical being, their wellness at the same time. So not sacrificing one for the other, because
Mm,
I think sometimes we put success in this dichotomy that in order to be successful, we can't have a personal life, and in order to have a personal life, we can't have a
yeah, you have to
professional
have
life.
one or the other. That's what they say all the time. Or
Yes,
one's
and
gonna suffer.
exactly. So one of the top things that I always recommend is every day starting out, what are the top three things that I want to accomplish personally and professionally, and putting those in the forefront. So it's like the strategy of taking the big rocks first and focusing on those, looking at what can be delegated. Do you absolutely have to do everything? Because I have one client who, I think she says, I have 50 things I have to do today. She's already set up for failure. There's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way all of that is going to get accomplished. And it's every day. And so we are working on paring down that list.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Because we do put a lot on our plate, and then we get even more burnt out because we can't complete what we said we were gonna do.
Right.
Damn,
It's like
I could be your assistant.
it's like we are eh, we're lying to ourselves, and we're letting ourselves down. We make these promises. I'm going to do these 50 things on the list. Then you don't get them, do them. Then you feel bad. Then they're back on the list to pile on to the next list or the next day so
Mm.
that you can let down yourself again. So there's no way you're performing your best when you're doing that. And then I also recommend that top performers have some type of comfort kit that they keep with them.
Like what?
A comfort kit.
Okay, are we talking dildos? What are we talking?
I guess it could be, but no, it's
You're nasty. No.
I am, but not right now. Essentially, it's having something of the five senses around that brings you comfort. So I like olfactory things, uh, something auditory that I can hear, something that you can taste, something that you see, things that bring you comfort or movement. So some of having that around with you will allow you to be able to release some stress. So for some people, something visual might be a picture of your favorite person or a place that you
Michael
vacation.
Jackson.
Something that makes you smile and brings you joy. You can focus your attention on it. Something olfactory might be a favorite perfume, or some type of I forget what you call the potpourri that you enjoy smelling, or lavender. Something tactile. It might be, a lot of people like fidget spinners. I had one client, she liked to have a rock with a favorite phrase on it that said
Mm.
calm, peace. Touching that, also feeling the coolness of the rock. That's a way to direct and guide some stress in a moment that you can keep with you at all times. I said visual, tactile, olfactory. Some people like to have a band, or just getting up and stretching and walking around, something, and that gets rid of all of that nervous energy. Let's see, what did I miss one? And hearing. Okay, hearing. So if you have a favorite song, or if you have Some people find this calming. It's actually stressful for me, but you'll see people who like to
Oh no, I don't. I
pin
hate when people
and
come
click,
around
click,
me with that.
click.
I go crazy.
The same for me. I don't like that. Some people have bells, or just having something that you can listen to kind of, sometimes it's meditation, and you can just simply take that in the bathroom or take a small walk around the office and listen to that to kind of calm you down. That allows you to de-stress and then focus back on your task. Any amount of a little bit of, it's like if you have a boiling pot and tipping that lid a little bit so it doesn't
Yeah.
boil over, and
Hmm,
then putting it back.
you're good. I see why you're a doctor and have all these things listed here that goes on and on and on.
Mhm.
So my one thing I would have to say, right? If someone is at the end of their rope, right? The end of their rope, they're about to just jump off a building or go crazy. What is just the immediate one thing you can tell this person to stop them from reaching to putting their foot off that ledge? What is the one thing that person should consider doing or do?
The one thing, wow, okay, I have to pick one. If I said one thing, I would say to stop, get somewhere alone, and breathe. To simply take a cleansing breath, and making sure that when you take in that cleansing breath, that it's actually a belly breath. So most people go, right, and you see their chest rise. That's
Right.
not
And it's
good.
supposed to be from your stomach, right?
Exactly. Just like you're a singer, make sure you're putting that, and that way you're getting cleansing breath. It increases the blood flow to your brain. It relaxes you. It reduces your blood pressure so that you can begin to think clearly.
Nice. Well done. Can you believe I didn't even take a break and we went past 30 minutes? Good job.
Oh, wow.
But with that said, before let me just take a breath. Thank you so much, Dr. Burnout, aka Dr. Kimberly Wilson. With that said, tell people where they could definitely again get that free the list that they'll be able to find out if they're burnt out or not. So tell us where to get that. Tell us where to contact you, how to reach you, so you can definitely help some more people and add to that 5,500 women that you're gonna help overcome burnout.
Absolutely. So they can go straight to my website, drkimberlywilson.com, or you can catch me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok. Any of those, you can connect with me.
And she's been doing some really cool Instagram. Good job. I actually enjoy them. Most of the time I only watch my own stuff. So if I pause to watch someone else's, it must really be good. So with that
Oh,
said, no, it's
thank
really
you.
good. I will tell you if you talked. I have no problem doing that. With that said, I want to thank everyone for watching the Mss Francois Show. That's MSS for multi-talented and super sexy. You could definitely check me out on every social media platform there is, because I mean, all of this should be everywhere, shouldn't it? So everyone have a wonderful evening. Don't be burned out. Remember to take a breath and pause, okay? And visit Dr. Kimberly Wilson website. All right. See you on the next episode. Thank you, Miss Wilson. Dr.
Thank
Wilson,
you.
say bye.